Great, welcome. I'm excited to introduce Mary Ann Keys. Mary Ann has been with MSU Extension in Park County for 16 years. She started her career in 4-H youth development and family consumer science, and more recently transitioned into economic and community development. Mary Ann was part of the original planning team that launched Leadership 49. This is a community-based leadership program in 2014, and she is now the lead facilitator of that program. So Mary Ann, thanks for being here, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Katie. Welcome, everyone. Uh, it's 8:30 on a snowy Tuesday morning here in Livingston. And so I just wanted to take a minute and find out how you're doing. More importantly, find out what you think about when you hear the words emotional intelligence. So go ahead and just drop those into the chat. You have empathy. Looks like we might need some coffee. Awareness of others' feelings, perceptive mindfulness awareness, ability to read people and meet them where they are, sharing people's mood and emotions, awareness and compassion, reading the room. Looks like you guys have a very solid grasp on this, so today's going to be fun. Awareness of self and others. Some people, when they hear the words emotional intelligence, you get this face, that what are we going to be talking about? And I'm not sure I'm ready for that. That's not this audience, though. So today we're going to use the working definition. Emotional intelligence refers to a different way of being smart. It's not your IQ, but it's rather how you manage yourself and your emotional relationships with others. Most people do this all the time. Ever walked into the room and seen your dog staring at you and instantly you know what he's thinking? That's exactly being able to read emotional intelligence of the dog and interact with them. Here's a quick Cliff Notes version. EI, emotional intelligence, or EQ as it's sometimes called, is recognizing and managing your own emotions and recognizing and influencing the emotions of others. It was popularized by the psychologist John Goleman in the 1990s. It's made of 4 different domains: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. In each one of those domains, there are 12 different competencies. I apologize, guys. I'm a family and I have kids, and so I forgot to lock the doors. I have a little one who is sick and they decided to come in. Back to this. 4 different domains, 12 different competencies. What does the word competency mean to you? Go ahead and drop that in the chat. Can do things well. Capacity and facility. Stuff you're good at. Ability to complete a task. Absolutely. You all have hit the key point. Each one of these are skills and abilities that you can learn. Some of them might come easy, some of them might be more difficult, but it's the ability to practice and to be able to improve and to do them well. And that essentially is why emotional intelligence is different from IQ. Let's talk about our first domain, self-awareness, the ability to accurately self-assess what you're feeling and understand how our emotions affect our actions and performance. The research has said that about 95% of us think that we can do it well. When you really dig in and look deeper, only about 15% of us are actually good at doing it and actually self-assess what our real emotions are. So what are some things that we can do? This is where this ties directly into gracious space and looking at the room. Before you go into an interaction, ask, what am I bringing with me? What am I reacting to? Are my values being questioned? Are my values being reinforced? Do I have a situational bias? What is my capacity today? Seek the feedback from those around me. I want you to look at the picture on the right. If your meeting room is at the end of the hallway, what do you think about that meeting before you've ever stepped into it? So go ahead, type your thoughts into the chat. Dread. I like it, Campbell, The Shining. Dread, I'm in trouble. Intimidating. Horrible boringness. Gloom. Absolutely. Don't slip on the floor. These are all pieces that extension educators, that even before you've ever started talking to your audience, you're creating that space and that interaction for them. And as the presenter, you've also created that in yourself. When you walk into a meeting room and you see this picture full size on the wall, what do you feel? Openness, freedom, calm, beauty, peace. You have the ability to control the dynamics of the room just with the setting. But those aren't just the dynamics of the room, that's the dynamics of you as the presenter. So that's the first piece, is self-awareness, being able to know what your emotions are and to understand them. When I teach this in class, in Leadership 49, I have our participants break up into the domains, and then they brainstorm the things that they see others or they themselves do to become more self-aware. I posted these flip charts just so you could read them. I think recognizing unconscious bias is important because sometimes we go into rooms with different opinions, and making the most, examining that unconscious bias is important. What am I reacting to is again, knowing your triggers. Am I in a pattern? Thinking before speaking and then listening to hear. Our next domain is self-management. This is the part where you've accurately assessed your emotions, and then you move into what are you going to do now that you know that's what you're feeling. Emotional self-control. Adaptability. I am able to pivot based upon the emotion that I'm feeling. Achievement orientation, most people think as I want to win, the go for the gold. It's actually defined as continuous improvement. Positive outlook is the final, that growth mindset. The picture on the right, I put that there because these are flour sack dresses. It was the ability of the company to understand that's what the fabric was being used for and to pivot, knowing that they could do good just beyond the product. So what are some ways that we can practice self-management? Tying into the Leadership to Go series from last week, what are your own values? And how do they interact with your emotions? When you walk into a room where there might be tension, use a calm voice and smile. Fake it till you make it isn't wrong in that situation. Always remember you cannot control someone else's behavior or emotions. You can only control your own. If it gets to the point where it doesn't look like it's going to be productive, or your emotions are triggered and you know you need to take a minute and think about what to do next, ask, do I need to take a break? And then practice saying, I'm reacting to this situation. Can we take a break for 10 minutes and come back? Or take a break for however long that we need to. This is the self-management flip chart that Leadership 49 did. I want you to take a minute and look at it. And then go ahead and enter some things into the chat that you think might be able to help you with self-management. Absolutely. Believe that there will be a positive outcome. Slow down and take time to be thoughtful, intentional with words and actions. Our next domain is social awareness, the ability to look at the surroundings, who's in the room around you, and to read the emotions of what's going on. I wanted to point out that empathy is the ability to understand the emotions of those around you, not necessarily how you would react in their situation, but the ability to understand the emotion that they're feeling at that time in that situation. Organizational awareness is really what's going on in the organization, in the group. Check out Leadership to Go next week for group dynamics. It'll help you understand some more about organizational awareness. Empathy is one of the hardest, in my personal opinion, to get right. And so I picked from Dr. Brene Brown suggestions on practicing empathy. Remember to be kind and curious. Listening is the most important. You don't need to fix or make people feel better. Try to understand how the person is feeling, not how you might feel in the same situation. Often I find when you're trying to be empathetic, people say, well, when this happened to me, I did this. That's not empathy. That's comparison. Remember that you're listening to how they're feeling in the situation. Help people know that they're not alone. Even if you've never had those experiences or those feelings, you're there and you're sharing with them at that moment. And let people know that you're grateful. On a positive note, on the picture on the right, what emotions do you see coming out of this picture if you were on the street next to this couple? Love, joy, joy, happiness, Jennifer, joy, happiness, and love? Absolutely. When we ask the group, how do they do social awareness? Listen and pause, let others lead, they watch. Approaching with curiosity, read the energy in the room. For those of you that have taken the personality temperament quiz, Real Colors, you'll know that our blue folks have the ability to walk into a room and to read the emotions. If you don't have that special set of skills, or you're a different color, it's okay to find the blues in the room and say, what's going on? It seems like there's emotion here. How can I? No. Out. Sorry. Children. The final domain is relationship management. And these are in a row as opposed to a column because they're not a set of skills that you progress one to the next. They're laying in a toolbox and they're a composition of skills and competencies that you can use at different times. Conflict management, we all know it's difficult, but the better you get at it, the better your emotional intelligence is going to be. Influence is a short-term game. How can you influence those around you and help? Coaching and mentoring is a long-term game. And so that's how I distinguish the two of them. Inspirational leadership, as opposed to teamwork, before you go into a situation, consider how you want to lead and how you want to follow. This is the relationship management, the slide, the Leadership 49 class wrote. Which one of these do you think is the most important? Go ahead and drop that into the chat. Or if there's not something on there and there's something else you want to add, go ahead and drop that in as well. Vulnerability. Kindness, respect, listening, trust. I want you to think about how often do we walk into difficult situations. And for some of us, those are difficult youth adult situations that might be called 4-H meetings or 4-H council meetings. How often do we go in and not consider vulnerability an asset? So I want to crowdsource information for a minute. If you have a room where vulnerability is not viewed as an asset, or you have abrasive personalities, what would you do to create a space where it was valued? Modeling. So Charla, if you have a group where vulnerability, trust, and listening are not valued, how would you use emotional intelligence to create that in the room? Christy, thank you. You said modeling. Kim said speaking of calm voice. Julianne said ground rules. Seek input from the quiet ones. Absolutely. Listen to find the root cause of the tension. An icebreaker. Patience and communication. Absolutely. I think I only have a minute left, so I want to thank you for joining. And I want to let you know that next week it's group dynamics. The Leadership to Go series was presented in a very thoughtful order, so all the topics tie in together. And now I want to open it up for questions. And I want to thank everyone who's posting in the chat because those are very valuable answers to the question I asked. If you have 4-H Council questions or different group conflict questions, those are some excellent recommendations.
Wonderful. Thank you, Marianne. Yes, folks, please share your questions in the window. Maybe as we give them a minute to type some of those in. Marianne, we kind of just walked through a lot of strategies and things you can do to practice in these different domains of emotional intelligence. Can you speak to what that actually looks like if someone is walking away from this and wants to start practicing? Like, what advice do you have for them?
I would pick one at a time, one of the 12 competencies, and really think what you want to work on about it. Pick a specific topic In my personal life, since I'm at home and you've watched my interaction with my children's on this webinar, um, I need to work on empathy at times. And so that's something I would write down and then very thoughtfully think about situations in the last week or day where I have been unable to practice that empathy with them. And right now I'm thinking about the parent child scenario and then go through some different strategies where I could do that and make an effort in the next day or two to really practice that competency. The other piece that I think is incredibly valuable is the ability to talk about it with folks outside of the setting. So I might pick the brain of key folks at my office or people that I work with to see what their strategies are to help build that skill within myself. Does that help, Katie?
Yeah. Yeah, super helpful. Start small and practice is what I heard. And then also some accountability, some peers, someone maybe trusted that can help you continue to practice and evolve. What what are your thoughts when you're working with a group and you have one or more skeptics because the word emotional is in the title? Any thoughts on how you might approach that?
I would have them think about a time when they've had an emotional experience that was positive, because every single one of us as a human race has that, and then an emotional experience that was negative, and then build on those, on how important they were. And so even pick a time when they felt happiness or they felt sadness or frustration or anger, and then point out that we are all part of the race that feels emotions. And then emotional intelligence is simply recognizing that that is a piece, a very large piece of being able to interact with everyone else. And you can't leave it on the side and pretend it doesn't exist.
Great, thank you. It
Mm-hmm.
appears I may be the one with the questions today. Maybe kind of connected to that last question. Um, in addition to skeptics, when you come across folks who really lean in to their IQ, right, their intelligence and information, um, and this may be the same answer you just gave, but I think I personally come across folks in both of these camps when I'm doing this work in community that are maybe like a content or they're an expert in their field. And any thoughts on how you can, maybe it's just modeling like everyone was sharing before, but any thoughts around that, around engaging folks into this kind of relationship human component piece when they are really holding on to their information or their facts or their knowledge?
I think our group said that you have to find that common ground and work with that. And sometimes it's spending the time and finding that relationship piece with them about what moves them and what their passion is. Often when I've had people come to the meetings, they're passionate about a topic because there's a fear. And so it's it's really spending the time and recognizing what's behind that emotion and what's causing it. And usually it's a values discussion. And so building off of what that value is. And I know we say common ground all the same time, but it's building off of what that value is to help them move forward in the conversation.
So I'm hearing you say just using a lot of emotional intelligence and leadership skill.
Absolutely.
Great. All right. Well, last call. If there's any last thoughts or questions for Marianne, comments are, of course, welcome. We have just a couple minutes here and we may send you off early if there's nothing else.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I'm just seeing lots of thanks come in. Marianne, thank you for your time. Obviously, you are welcome to reach out to Marianne or the MSU Community Development if you have more questions, want to discuss this, further resources. We're here to support you in your leadership journey. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again hopefully next week.
Thank you. Take care.